D.C.
The fact that the House has scheduled 13 more days and not full days for the rest of the year and has basically thrown it in. We're going to do nothing else except find a way to keep the government operating. That tells you as well that we have a great difference here.
Wait a second. The House has scheduled 13 days?
Yeah, you know, the rest of the year is pretty much said we're done.
That was our guest, Norm Ornstein, last night, pointing out the fact the House of Representatives is hardly burning the midnight oil as they approach the end of the year. And there's a good reason for that. House Speaker John Boehner wants to run out the clock on the House calendar, so he doesn't have to do anything on something like, say, comprehensive immigration reform, which, of course, passed the Senate this summer with broad bipartisan support and is sitting there with, it looks like, enough votes in the House to actually pass and become a law, if only John Boehner brings it to the floor for a vote. The ease with which this could be done was highlighted today by Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi. With 190 co-sponsors on the H.R. 15 and 28 Republicans vowing support, she tweeted, "We have the votes to pass immigration reform." Still, Boehner seems to be saying, look, we just don't have the time to take up a complex issue like immigration reform. It's a strategy he hopes will convince lawmakers to just ignore the issue altogether. But the strategy of those people whose lives are on the line, and there are millions of them, is to make it so John Boehner and the rest of the Republican Party cannot ignore it. So this morning, while eating breakfast, Boehner was approached by two teenagers who asked if they could share with him their stories on immigration.
Okay, do you think we can talk while you're waiting for your food?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So hi, I'm Carmen, Lima. I'm 13, and you're a father, right? So how would you feel if you had to tell your kids at the age of 10 that you were never coming home? Huh?
That would be good.
I know. So that's what's happening. That's what happened to me. That happened to me.
And Boehner gave him the line he gives everybody, which is, of course, some version of, "I've been committed to this ever since the president got reelected."
Well, I'm trying to find some way to get this thing done. It's, you know, not easy. Not going to be an easy path forward, but I've made it clear since the day after the election, it's time to get this done.
So we can count on your vote for immigration reform.
Right, find a way to move the bill forward. Thanks.
Thanks. Check this out. Boehner had the gall to tell these girls to their faces that he's, quote, trying to find some way to get this thing done. A few hours before he went out and told reporters he has no intention whatsoever moving forward on immigration reform.
The idea that we're going to take up a 1,300-page bill that no one had ever read, which is what the Senate did, is not going to happen in the House. And frankly, I'll make clear we have no intention of ever going to conference on the Senate bill.
Joining me now are those two young women that confronted House Speaker John Boehner on tape. Carmen Lima, an undocumented 13-year-old student whose father faces possible deportation. Her family's active in the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles. And Jennifer Martinez, a 16-year-old student whose parents are undocumented. She's an activist for One America. Carmen, I wanted to ask you what your response was or reaction to seeing John Boehner say to you he's trying to get it done, and then a few hours later go tell the press, absolutely no way, basically over my dead body.
Well, here's the thing. I told Boehner my story, hoping that maybe it would touch him, maybe he would change his mind a little, maybe not completely drop to his knees and say yes, I'm gonna go do it right now. But I hope he would have he would be honest with me. And now I feel betrayed. I feel like he lied to me. I feel like my story meant nothing to him, which is terrible.
Jennifer, you and Carmen were sort of trying to kind of cross this empathetic gap, right? I mean, trying to let John Boehner know what it is like to live in the uncertainty that so many millions of our fellow Americans really live in. Do you think that there's any way of getting that through to politicians?
I think it is possible. At the end of the day, they are human to some extent. So, I mean, that's the whole point of this, telling our stories, being persistent. I mean, we're not letting up. At some point, we're going to tear down those walls that they've built around themselves, and sooner or later, they're going to have to listen whether they want to or not. It's just a matter of time.
What has it meant for you, Jenni, to live with the specter of deportation, of your family being separated? Have you seen that up close and personal?
My parents, I'm lucky enough that my parents have never been deported. I've never had my family separated in the sense that ICE came to my house and took my mom or my dad from me. But as far as up close and personal, I've grown up with friends who are undocumented, whose parents have been deported, and then they're left to, make ends meet for themselves because this is their home. Where else are they going to go? This is, as I said, this is their home. So as far as me seeing it personally, I've seen it through friends, the lives of friends, through the lives of my contemporaries at school. And I mean, back in 2009, when my family went back to Mexico, I had to leave my dad back in Mexico at an airport and go home as if everything was okay, when in reality, I didn't know when I'd see my dad again.
Carmen, I've been a reporter for a number of years, and when I first started being a reporter, it was really hard for me to just go up to people at events or anything and just kind of break in and interrupt them and start asking them questions. I had to sit there and psych myself up. How did you prepare yourself to do this?
Ever since I heard we were speaking to Boehner, I knew this was a huge thing, that he was the guy we had to convince so that the immigration reform passed. So ever since my dad was almost deported, I knew that the one thing you can't do is be afraid. And that's what my mom taught me, it's what my older sisters taught me. So when I heard you're going to speak to Boehner, I wasn't scared. I was hopeful that he was going to listen, he was going to understand. What I was scared of was his 6 bodyguards around him. That was scary.
I think they treated you with due grace and deference. Do you think there is any way? I mean, what is the next step now? I mean, John Boehner, basically, we know that the fate of this really rests in his hands and his hands alone. I mean, he is the Speaker of the House. If he brings this up to a vote, it'll almost certainly pass. What is the next step? Are you guys just going to say, well, we tried, or is there going to be more pressure brought to bear on him?
Well, this movement is made up of people who are so resilient, it's not going to stop now. This movement, it's not something that's political. It's something that's dealing with human lives. You really think that people who only want to better their lives, who only want to give their children a chance, who only want a chance at education, you think they're going to stop anytime soon just because one man says, oh, no way are we going to do this year. No, we're going to be persistent. We've been persistent for the past years. It's going to continue.
Decades.
This is just an extension of the civil rights movement. It never ended. It's going to continue until we get what we want, which is comprehensive immigration reform.
They passed the torch down to us, and now we're going to carry it until Boehner says yes. Because we know that Boehner's going to have to give in, because politicians, once they see interest and once they see people rallying and people getting together and united, that's when politicians have to say, oh, well, we give up. It's the people's, not us.
Carmen, Lima, and Jennifer Martinez, thank you very much.
Now, the other thing that people have asked is, will you get help?
I'm not an addict of any sort, so I'm not quite sure why you're saying I need help.
There's news to report tonight on our old friend Rob Ford, the embattled, admitted crack-smoking mayor of Toronto. Today, he appeared before the Toronto City Council, and something happened I have never seen before at a City Council meeting, an intervention. We'll play you more of that tape next.